So I've been reading your guys' comments on that one video I did a while back, which was over whether or not the chicken was clean. And I've been seeing a lot of people push back against the idea that the chicken is clean, because in that video I went to try to prove that it was clean, of course. And I've been seeing some comments where people are going and saying it's not clean because of this and that. I can see what you're saying based on, certain interpretation of the Bible. So what I want to go into, and I'm going to go in depth on this throughout multiple videos. So I'm going to have a series over this. So I'm going to be going over basically, is a chicken clean according to the Bible? And I'm going to be doing an updated videos on that topic, because, I already went over that lesson a while back, but now I have more information and new information to go over. So, and this is going to be basically, one of those videos that I'm showing you kind of my research process. So if you listen to my last video, I was talking about, showing a little bit more of that. So in this video, what we're going to try to see is if the chicken is clean or not based on one topic. And this is a topic that I've been seeing in the comments repeated over and over again. So what that is basically people will say, well, the chicken is not clean because, A, it creeps, B, it doesn't really fly, and C, it walks on all fours. And so based on certain interpretations of all three of those things, people have concluded that the chicken is unclean. Because let's take a look at here in Leviticus 11, which is the where you find the dietary laws, right? This isn't the only place. You can also go to Deuteronomy 14, right? So when I'm looking at this, Leviticus 11, verse 20, I'm seeing this is where people are getting this from. In verse 20 says, all fowls that creep going upon all four shall be an abomination unto you. So there's really a lot of things to unpack here, okay? So when I first look at this, I'm seeing something in the English to where it's saying to me, all birds that are walking upon four something are going to be an abomination unto you. And when I'm looking right at this, it says going upon all four. It's not really clear what that is. The question is it like an animal, like a cat going on all fours? Based on the English, when we look at going on all four, we usually think of, cats, dogs. So is that what it's saying? Okay. Another thing, creep. That probably means walk. And then fowls. What we notice here is that when you go back to where it first starts talking about the fowls, in verse 13, it says, and these are they which ye shall have an abomination among the fowls. They shall not be eaten. They are an abomination, the eagle and the ostrich and the osprey and the vulture and the kite. So it's listing all these different birds. So I can see why people would think that this word right here, fowl, would be talking about birds. Now, one thing that I've noticed as I've read this is that when you go to verse 19, it says, and the stork, the heron after her kind, and the lapwing, and the bat. Now, what I did basically, because notice how it ends off with this word bat, with the word bat, right? And this animal, which is under the category of a fowl, is listed under the unclean fowls, according to Leviticus 11. As you can see, this bat right here actually looks like it walks on all fours when you actually take a look at it. Now, I'm going to show you guys some pictures. Bat walking. I'm going to show you guys some pictures, right? I'm not going to go and click on this video because, I don't want to, have this video copyrighted, right? I don't want to have any copyrighted content on this video. So when you actually take a look at different videos too, not just this one, but when you actually look at the way they walk, and this is a good picture right here, it looks like and this also is a good picture, it looks like they are walking on 4 limbs. So when you see this verse 20 talking about all fowls that creep going upon all 4 shall be an abomination unto you, if you were to interpret that as if it's going on 4 limbs, 4 different limbs, it's walking on 4 different limbs, the bat would fit that description. The bat is unclean. Remember, this is under the category of these unclean fowls. So it would make sense for this to also connect to verse 20, which says, all fowls that creep going upon all 4 shall be an abomination unto you. A bat, I mixed up fowl and bat right there. But a bat, when it creeps, it looks like it's walking on 4 limbs. So again, for you people who are curious, just go and take a look at that. Look at different videos of bats walking. You'll see what I'm saying, and it's interesting. So that is one way to look at that scripture. Maybe instead of it talking about going upon all 4 toes, which is what people attribute to the chicken, maybe it's talking about going upon all 4 limbs. Because when you look at the scripture, just right here, we're not going into any outside sources yet. We'll do that later. But just looking at this scripture here, you can't say whether or not it's talking about going upon all 4. It doesn't say going upon all 4 toes right here. Let's just say that. So someone could easily say this is going upon all 4 limbs, and that's going to be an abomination unto you to eat that, and a bat would fit that description. Yeah, because one thing I do want to say is that, I've noticed that I've looked at other people's videos on this topic, on whether or not the chicken is clean, and basically you got people saying, well, basically, the chicken, it goes on all 4 toes. So they immediately interpret this going upon all 4s as, going on all 4 toes. And they say that means that it is an abomination. And the problem that I have with that is, first of all, by saying that, you're not taking a deep look at what this scripture is saying. And that means going into the Hebrew, also into the Septuagint, looking at that to get a better understanding. And we'll do that. But what I first want to do is bring up a question. So if I were to show you guys a fowl that basically fit this description of, creeping and going and walking on 4 toes. If I were to show you guys a fowl that did that, would you also say that is unclean? Well, of course, if you believe that the chicken is unclean for those things, then you would say that is unclean. So what I'm trying to get at kind of is basically, if I were to show you guys that other fowl, it's not a chicken. If I were to show you that, but show you guys in the Bible, the Most High saying that it is clean, now would you say that it is unclean? Well, no, you couldn't. Because that would be a contradiction. If the Most High said that specific bird was good to eat, then it is good to eat according to his word. So when you understand that, that's actually going to make you have to take another look at verse 20 and get a better understanding of it. Because if I tell you guys of a fowl that creeps and it walks on 4 toes, and the Most I said is clean, then basically you got to take another look at verse 20 to actually see what it is saying. So, I've done research on this, and what I found is there is a fowl that does fit this description, or it fits that interpretation that people have the scripture, but it is clean. So therefore, that means basically, if you're interpreting the scripture to say that all fowls that, mainly stay on the ground and walk, and walk on 4 toes, if you say that is what the scripture is saying, basically you're basically saying that the Most High contradicted himself on his laws, and that is actually not the case with this. So we're gonna we're gonna go and see really this. We're actually gonna take a look at what this bird is, and what I want to do is actually let me stay in here and let's just search. And this bird is going to be a quail. Okay. So first, what I want to show you guys is really when you take a look at quails in the Bible, you see these 4 instances. You don't see a lot, right? But the main thing is in Exodus 16 verse 13, it says, well, let's start at verse 11. And Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, At even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread. And ye shall know that I am Yahuwah your Elohim. And it came to pass that at even the quails came up and covered the camp. And in the morning the dew lay round about the host. The main thing that I want to show you guys right here is that in verse 12, the Most High says, At even ye shall eat flesh. He's going to give you flesh to eat. And in verse 13, he's saying that at even quails came up. So the flesh that he gave the children of Israel to eat during this time was quails. So that lets us know that quails are clean according to Yahuwah. So that is something we have to understand and keep in mind. Now, after I saw this, I did a little bit of research on quails, and I'll show you guys some of the things that I've seen. And basically, I'm going to go into, I may be able to just look this up here. I have it bookmarked, but let me just try to look this up here. So let's see. We're going to look at, let's just say, how many toes do quail have? Okay, so it says, that's one thing that says 3 toes, but let's take a look at this in detail. So let's just do a little search here. So this is what this is saying right here. This specific type of quail, known as the Cortinix quail, have 4 toes. So it says these type of quail, they have 4 toes. 3 of the toes point forward and the other toe points backwards. That's kind of similar to a chicken toes. And might get some weird pictures, but as you can see there, you see 3 toes pointing forward, 1 in the back, right? 3 toes pointing forward and 1 in the back. Now, let's type in quail toes. Might be hard to get a good picture. Quail. Let's just type in 4 toes just so let's see if we can get right to it. So that's one that has 3, I believe, or that looks like it has 4 right there. Yeah, you can see 4. So yeah, this is somebody talking about their quail or whatever. Notice how you see, 1, 2, 3, and 4 toes. So this is a clean bird that the Most High allowed the children of Israel to eat. And notice how it has 4 toes. Now, let's just see if we can get any more pictures. Let's take a look at this right here. And you can't really see too close on that. So let's go to something else. And right here, it looks like you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4 right there. I believe that has 4 toes. right here as well. You can clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4. So these are just different type of quail. And we already saw another thing. It's talking about quail having, some quail having 4 toes. So what I just want to get at, and also you can see right there, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a picture of quails, and it's showing them having 4 toes. What I want to show you guys basically is that just because a bird, walks on 4 toes does not make it unclean. Quail are clean according to the Most High. They walk on 4 toes. So that doesn't mean that, just because they have 4 toes that they're unclean. Okay? So, because that would be a contradiction according to what the Most High has said in His Word. Now, another thing I want to look at is kind of the basically kind of the habits of quail. Do they fly mostly? Do they walk mostly? Because we all know with chicken, they mostly walk instead of fly. Now, don't be fooled. Chicken can fly. So, you type in chicken flying. Don't get fooled on, those chicken that they have in those factories and things like that, where they just have all these chicken packed up together. They're feeding all types of hormones, and they can barely fly because they're so big. You take a look at, just do your research, and you'll see that there's many videos of chicken flying. And can chickens fly? You can just take a look at this here. And the short answer is yes, they can fly. And I've taken a look at this. I've taken a look at different things on this, and yes, chicken, they can fly. It's not like they can only walk. So that's another thing to keep in mind when people look at that scripture and say it's talking about birds that creep, and some people, it seems like they're thinking that's talking about birds that cannot fly, which refers to chicken. That's not the case. Chicken can fly short distances. So another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and pull up a something that I've researched beforehand, and I'm going to go ahead and get that. All right, here it is. So it's just this website that's just talking about quail facts, right? What I want to show you guys is that, let's take a look at this. Basically, this is going to tell you whether or not quails fly mostly or walk mostly. And it says it right here. Quails spend most of their time on the ground, right? Scratching at the soil to dig up food. Quail are very sociable birds and often gather in small flocks called coveys I don't even know. They are somewhat laid back birds, preferring to walk on the ground rather than fly. That's key. They prefer to walk on the ground rather than fly. But if startled, they can explode into flight at a speed of 40 miles per hour. However, quail cannot endure long flights. They usually live their entire lives within a 40-acre radius. So when you look at this right here, this sounds pretty similar to a chicken, right? Chicken cannot endure long flights. They can fly, right? You look at those videos and you'll see them flying, but they won't be flying for long periods of time, right? They will be mostly on just walking on the ground. And this is similar to the quail. Quails spend most of their time on the ground. So right here, this is basically a lot of people's definition of what creep refers to, or creeping bird, where it's spending most of its time on the ground. Because that's what a chicken does, right? It spends most of its time on the ground. You can see here a quail spends most of its time on the ground. So this really helps us come to the conclusion that just because a bird is spending most of its time on the ground does not make it unclean. Because remember, the Most I said that quail are clean. And I saw one thing. Let's just type in quail creep. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, this is Wikipedia, but still, when I looked at quail and creep, notice how it says habits. This is a terrestrial species feeding on seeds and insects on the ground. It is notoriously difficult to see, keeping hidden in crops and reluctant to fly, preferring to creep away instead. Notice how it uses the word creep. So it prefers to walk or creep instead of flying. Kind of sounds like the chicken to me. It says even when flushed, it keeps low and soon drops back into cover. So, I mean, if that's not creeping, I don't know what is creeping, right? Because, I mean, that's pretty similar to a chicken anyways. So, going back to this scripture, I think, and this isn't it right here, verse 20, Leviticus 11, I think a lot of people, you might want to go back and take a closer look at verse 20 to see what it's actually saying. And in the next few videos that I'm going to be doing, we're going to take a look at that, going into the Hebrew, also going into the Septuagint to get a better understanding of what this is talking about, because the translation of saying that verse 20 is saying that all fowls that creep, which means mainly walk on four toes, are an abomination to you. That interpretation is flawed because the quail fits that description and that interpretation, but it is not an abomination because the Most High said in his word that it was clean. The quail is clean because he gave that to the children of Israel to eat. So what we need to keep in mind in doing this is that when we look at the English translation, that is not necessarily the correct translation of the Bible. We may need to go into things like the Hebrew, like I said before, and the Greek to get a better understanding. And so that's kind of what I do, like when I'm researching things that seem kind of iffy, and even not some things that may not be, if I'm not confused on, right? I go back and try to look into the Hebrew and the Greek to see if I'm getting the correct interpretation of that scripture. And even when you look into the Hebrew and the Greek, that's not necessarily saying you're always going to get the right interpretation by doing that. But usually it puts you in a better direction than just looking at the English. So what we can take away from this is that the chicken is not unclean because it creeps mainly and because it walks on four toes. So even me personally, I'm just going to throw this out there. When I took a look at this and saw it say going upon all four, I was like, that can't be talking about just going on four toes. Okay, the chicken does not have four toes. It has 8. Just like how humans do not have 5 toes. If you're just, normal human, you have 10, right? You walk on 10 toes. You're not just hopping on one foot, right? On 5 toes. A chicken's not just hopping on one foot or one leg on 4 toes. It's walking on both of them. So, that whole interpretation it seems pretty flawed to me. I just took a look at that and I was like, nah, that's not what it's. I don't think that's what that's saying based on just that simple what I just said right there. Chicken has 8 toes that it walks on. And also I took a deeper look at it and I was like, okay, let's see if we can find any other birds that fit this description. And we saw that a quail fits that description that people are putting out there, to where it's creeping and walking on 4, and I should say 8 toes actually, but on 1 foot it has 4 toes, just like the chicken. So, okay, so basically, I'm going to wrap this up. In the next videos, we're going to go into the Hebrew and also the Greek. And we're going to be looking at other scriptures within Leviticus 11 to try to get a better understanding on what this scripture is talking about, because we already know what the scripture is not talking about. It's not saying that the chicken is unclean because it mainly walks on 4 toes on each of its feet. All right, so if you guys have anything you want to say about this video, you agree or disagree with it, go ahead and let me know in the comment section, and I'll be posting more videos on this topic pretty soon. Shalom.